The first receipt was folded into a tiny square beneath my grandmother's medicine tray, pressed flat by a bottle of blood pressure pills she had been cutting in half with a steak knife. It was from Carrara Stone and Tile, dated the same Friday my mother told me Grandma's insurance suddenly stopped covering the good medication. Across the top, in my mother's looping handwriting, someone had written, "Final Marble Selection, Kitchen Island." My father stood in the doorway behind me and said very calmly, "Don't start making this ugly, Natalie. She doesn't need much at her age. My name is Natalie Brennan. I'm 33 years old, and that was the moment I realized my parents hadn't just been neglecting my grandmother. They had been shopping with her survival money. Grandma Iris lived in the back bedroom of my parents' house, the one with the faded yellow curtains and the old sewing machine they used as a nightstand because there wasn't room for her dresser anymore. She had moved in 2 years earlier after a small stroke left her right hand weak. My parents made a big show of it at church. "We're taking care of Mom," my mother, Marcy Brennan, would say, placing one hand over her chest like she was accepting an award. My father, Gerald, would nod beside her. Family takes care of family. What they meant was that Grandma's pension check and Social Security were now being deposited into an account my father controlled. At first, I didn't question it. I was the daughter who lived 40 minutes away, the one with a job, a mortgage, and enough guilt to be useful. I brought groceries, I scheduled appointments, I changed sheets when my mother claimed her back was too inflamed. I sat with Grandma on Sundays while my parents went to brunch with my older brother, Brent, and his wife. But little things started catching in my mind. Grandma's slippers had holes in both heels. Her favorite cranberry juice disappeared from the fridge because Mom said it was too sugary, while unopened bottles of wine lined the pantry. Grandma whispered once, "Do you think you could bring me shampoo next time? Not the blue kind, it burns." The kitchen, meanwhile, was being demolished. Every week there was something new. Brass pulls, a farmhouse sink, custom lighting. My mother stood in the dust wearing linen pants, pointing at samples like she was hosting a design show. When I asked how they were paying for it, Dad smiled without warmth. "We planned ahead." That Friday, I found Grandma sitting at the edge of her bed, trying to split a pill with a trembling hand. Half of it shot across the tray and landed near the baseboard. "Grandma," I said, kneeling, "why are you cutting these?" Her face changed. Not fear exactly, shame. "Your mother said we have to stretch them until refill day." I looked at the bottle. It had been filled 6 days earlier. That's when I lifted the tray to wipe away the powder and found the receipt. $8,740. Deposit paid. Same date as Grandma's missing refill. Same date as my parents' steakhouse reservation, because my mother had posted a photo of her filet mignon with the caption, "Renovation stress calls for red wine." I walked into the half-finished kitchen holding the receipt between 2 fingers. My mother was comparing cabinet colors under the pendant lights. "Where did this money come from?" I asked. She didn't even look startled. She looked annoyed. Dad took the receipt from my hand, glanced at it, and slid it into his shirt pocket like I had handed him a grocery coupon. "Your grandmother is fine," he said. "She's cutting pills in half." Mom sighed. "Natalie, please don't be dramatic in the middle of my kitchen." Her kitchen. Not Grandma's medicine, not Grandma's pension, not Grandma's quiet little room at the back of the house where the heat barely reached. My father stepped closer and lowered his voice. "You have no idea what it costs to care for an elderly parent." And I remember looking past him at the new marble sample on the counter, white with gray veins, cold and perfect under the lights. I said, "Then show me." For the first time, both of my parents went completely silent. Dad laughed once, sharp and fake. "Show you what?" "The account," I said. "Grandma's pension, her Social Security, the bills. If everything is going to her care, show me." My mother set down a cabinet sample too hard. "You do not get to barge in here and audit us like we're criminals." Grandma called from the bedroom, her voice thin. "Natalie?" I turned immediately, but Dad blocked my path. "She gets confused," he said. "You rile her up." "She asked for shampoo," I said. "She's wearing slippers with holes." Mom's cheeks flushed. "Oh, for heaven's sake, I bought her slippers last Christmas. That was 3 Christmases ago." The contractor, a man named Luis, suddenly found something fascinating in his clipboard and stepped outside. Dad leaned close enough that I could smell steak sauce on his breath. "Listen to me," he said. "Your grandmother signed the paperwork. She wanted us to manage things. You have no legal standing here." Maybe he expected that to scare me. It almost did. But Grandma had once balanced a checkbook to the penny while watching 2 grandchildren and a pressure cooker full of green beans. She had kept every warranty, tax form, baptism card, and grocery rebate in labeled folders. If she had signed paperwork, there would be copies. So I went to her room. This time Dad didn't stop me because Mom grabbed his sleeve and hissed something under her breath. Grandma was sitting very still, eyes fixed on the doorway. "Did I make trouble?" she whispered. I sat beside her. "No, I need to ask you something. Did you give Dad permission to spend your money on the kitchen?" Her weak hand curled into the blanket. "I gave him permission to pay the bills," she said. "My medicine, my doctor, my room here." "Did you know about marble counters?" Her mouth trembled. "I thought they were using their savings." That was answer enough. While Mom and Dad argued in the hall, I asked Grandma where she kept her papers now. She looked toward the closet. "Blue bank folder," she said. "Top shelf, behind the quilt." I found it wedged behind a plastic storage bin, dusty but intact. Inside were statements, copies of benefit letters, an old check register, and 26 more receipts. Not copies, originals. They had been shoved in there carelessly, as if whoever hid them assumed Grandma would never climb up to look. Appliance warehouse, $3,200. Lighting gallery, $1,145. Custom cabinetry deposit, $11,600. Steakhouse, wine club, designer consultation, weekend resort, every Friday, every pension deposit. The pattern was so obvious, my hands went cold. Then I found the worst one. A check image printed from the bank website, payable to Brennan Home Improvements, memo line, caregiver reimbursement, $18,000. Grandma's signature was at the bottom. Only it wasn't Grandma's signature. The loops were wrong. The slant was wrong. The eye in iris looked like my mother's. Behind me, the bedroom door opened. My mother stood there, pale now. "Natalie," she said too softly, "put the folder down." I didn't put the folder down. I tucked it under my arm and stood between Mom and Grandma's bed. Mom's face hardened. "Those are private financial documents. They're Grandma's. I manage them." "You forge them." The word landed like a plate shattering. Dad appeared behind her. For 1 second, he looked less angry than afraid. Then he reached for me. I stepped back and raised my phone. "Touch me and I call the police from this room." Grandma made a small sound. Dad froze. Mom's voice turned syrupy. "Natalie, sweetheart, you're upset. You don't understand how complicated caregiving is. We've sacrificed our lives for her." Grandma stared at her lap. "You go out every Friday," I said. "You bought wine with her pension. You delayed her medication." "That is a vile accusation," Mom snapped. I opened the folder and read from the receipts. June 7th, pension deposit. June 7th, Maison Rouge, $218. June 14th, Social Security deposit. June 14th, lighting gallery. June 21st, pension deposit. June 21st, steakhouse. Same night, Grandma was told her refill had to wait. Dad's jaw flexed. "You're cherry-picking. There are 27 receipts." The hallway went quiet. Even the renovation noise had stopped. Then my brother Brent walked in through the side door, still in his work polo, carrying a tray of coffees. "What's going on?" Mom turned to him instantly. "Your sister is having one of her episodes." I almost laughed. I had never had an episode in my life. I had had opinions, which in my family were treated like symptoms. Brent looked at me, then at the folder. Nat, I held out the forged check. Did you know? He stared at it. Confusion became recognition, then disgust. Mom, he said slowly, why is Grandma paying Dad's shell company? Dad barked. It is not a shell company. You dissolved Brennan Home Improvements in 2019, Brent said. I helped you file the paperwork. That was when Mom started crying, not the soft kind, the useful kind. We needed help, she sobbed. The house was falling apart. Your grandmother lives here too. She benefits from the kitchen. She eats, doesn't she? Grandma's voice came from behind me, fragile but clear. I eat toast. Nobody moved. I eat toast, she repeated, because Marcy says meat is too hard for me. But I smell it when you bring home boxes. My mother's tears stopped. Dad pointed at Grandma. After everything we've done, you're gonna turn on us? That broke something in me. She's not turning on you, I said. She's telling the truth. I dialed Grandma's primary doctor first, then Adult Protective Services, then the bank fraud line. Dad started shouting over me. Mom called me ungrateful. Brent took the coffees, set them down, and quietly locked the front door so no one could leave with the folder. For the first time all day, Grandma reached for my hand. Can I go home with you? She asked. I looked at the unfinished marble island, the dust, my parents' faces. Yes, I said, tonight. Getting Grandma out of that house took 3 hours and 2 police officers. Not because she was unsafe to move, because my parents suddenly decided she was too fragile. She can't handle a disruption, Mom insisted, standing in the driveway with her arms folded, as if she hadn't been letting contractors run saws outside Grandma's door for weeks. Dad tried another angle. Natalie's house has stairs? I have a first-floor guest room, I said. She doesn't have medical equipment. I ordered a shower chair while you were yelling. One of the officers looked at Grandma. Ma'am, do you want to leave with your granddaughter? Grandma sat in my passenger seat wrapped in her blue cardigan, the bank folder on her lap like a shield. Yes, she said. That single word ended the performance. At my house, Brent carried in her small suitcase. It took us both less than 10 minutes to pack her life. 3 nightgowns, 2 cardigans, a worn Bible, a framed picture of my late grandfather, and the sewing tin where she kept spare buttons and emergency cash. There was only $12 inside. Grandma stared at it and whispered, I had more. I know, I said. The next morning, APS sent a caseworker named Mrs. Hahn to my house. She sat at my kitchen table with Grandma, gentle but direct, asking questions I could tell Grandma hated answering. Did anyone restrict your food? Did anyone prevent you from getting medication? Did anyone use your money without permission? Grandma kept her eyes on her hands. Yes, she said each time. By noon, the bank had frozen the account. By 3, the fraud department called back. There are multiple questionable withdrawals, the investigator told me, and the signature issue you flagged is significant. How significant? A pause. Significant enough that we're escalating. That evening, my mother began texting. First came guilt. How could you humiliate us after everything we've done? Then denial. You don't understand joint household expenses. Then threats. If you keep this up, you'll destroy this family. Finally, just before midnight, she sent a photo. It was Grandma, asleep in her old room, taken sometime without her knowing. Under it, Mom wrote, She was happy here until you poisoned her. Grandma saw it the next morning when my phone lit up on the counter. She didn't cry. She reached for her reading glasses, looked at the photo for a long time, and said, I look hungry. That was when I stopped feeling any pity for my mother. 2 days later, Brent called me from outside our parents' house. Nat, he said, voice low, you need to hear this. In the background, Dad was shouting. Then Mom's voice cut through, shrill and furious. If your sister hadn't found that folder, we would have been fine. Brent came back on the line. I recorded it, he said. My heart pounded. Send it to Mrs. Hahn. I already did. That afternoon, the contractor quit. The bank reversed 2 recent payments. The marble company filed a complaint for non-payment. And then Dad showed up at my door. Not angry this time. Smiling. He held up a document. "Your grandmother signed a new power of attorney last year," he said. "So hand her over." Dad's smile lasted until I took the document, photographed every page, and said, "Great. We'll let the caseworker and the bank's attorney review it." He stopped smiling. The power of attorney was dated the same week Grandma had pneumonia and spent 4 nights in the hospital. The notary was one of my mother's friends from church. Grandma didn't remember signing it. More importantly, the hospital had notes from that week. Disoriented, medicated, unable to consent to financial decisions. The document didn't save my parents. It buried them. Within a month, the county opened an elder exploitation investigation. The forged check became the centerpiece. So did Brent's recording. So did the receipts, all 27 of them, lined up in order like a map of my grandmother's suffering. Mom tried to blame Dad. Dad tried to blame household confusion. But Grandma sat in a small conference room beside me, wearing a clean sweater and new orthopedic shoes, and told the investigator, "I was hungry. I was scared to ask for things. They told me I cost too much." No one interrupted her. The kitchen was never finished. The marble island sat in my parents' house wrapped in plastic, unpaid for and useless. They had to sell the property to cover legal fees and restitution. Mom stopped posting restaurant photos. Dad stopped calling. Brent and I petitioned for a neutral fiduciary, and Grandma's benefits finally went where they were supposed to go: medicine, food, therapy, clothes, comfort. 6 months later, Grandma Iris had gained 9 pounds. That number made me cry harder than any court document. She lived with me through the winter, then chose a sunny, assisted living apartment 10 minutes away, not because I pushed her out, but because she wanted a door nobody could open without knocking. She got that door. She also got cranberry juice in her fridge, lavender shampoo in her shower, and a little glass jar on the counter labeled Mad Money. Every Friday I took her somewhere simple: soup at the diner, a library book sale, the park when her legs were steady enough. One Friday we drove past a home design store with slabs of marble displayed in the window. Grandma looked at them for a long moment. Then she patted my hand and said, "Cold-looking stuff, isn't it?" I laughed until my throat hurt. By the following spring, she was planting basil on her balcony, pressing soil around the roots with her good hand while I held the pot steady. The sun caught her silver hair. Her pill organizer was full. Her cheeks were pink. And for the first time in years, my grandmother looked not just cared for, but safe. I still ask myself, what would you have done if you found those 27 receipts? If this story stayed with you, tell me in the comments what you would have done in my place. And if you want more stories like this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel.